Today I'm with Frankie Fihn. Hey, Frankie. So I'll just give a quick backstory. I've over the past year or so, I grew my agency. I don't want to get into specific details, but let's say to a six-figure annually business. And then I started finding more information and seeing that there's more to be achieved. That there's higher goals that can be achieved, and I started looking for people who can take businesses to that next level, to that 100K a month business. And I found you. I reached out to you. We seem to vibe well, and I invited you to join me on this broadcast so I can ask some questions, learn about you, learn about your journey, and maybe help some other agency owners, entrepreneurs in their on their route as well. So thanks so much for clearing the time for me, and I know this is going to be good.
Well, brother, it worked out. Like, as we were just talking a little bit off air, working around children, we both got young kids, and it just worked out. They were out. So I'm happy to help. It's one of those things. I never woke up and one day said I want to help other agency owners. In fact, I never even woke up one day and said I want to have an agency. It was actually, I still remember how I got started my journey in 2007. I was living in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, which is my hometown. And I was still toying with the idea that I would get like a real job. And the economy just like really tanked, and especially locally, because it was like all dependent on car companies like Ford, General Motors, and Chryslers. They were laying off 10,000 people a week. And in a city of 200,000, when like 5-10% of the workforce gets fired in a day, like you do not just go find a job on the corner. And so I had to make an agency work. I didn't actually really wake up one day and think about this. And it was a whole kind of struggle. And it's one of those things that we ended up having a mastermind like 3 or 4 years ago. And it just worked out that everybody else in there was an agency owner. And I was this old graybeard who had been doing it like 14 years. Well, I guess I've been doing it 14 years now, but 10 years into it, most of these people were, had started in the last year or two. And I found I could be like really, really useful to these people. But it's interesting when you write a book on the topic. Like a lot of people when they write a book have these dreams of becoming like best-selling authors and being rich and famous. I was just thinking like, man, if there's one person like me who's sleeping on their girlfriend's couch, feeling like a loser, trying to make this business work, and I could just make one person's life easier, that's worth it. And it's really been an amazing journey to actually see how many people have helped. And just for the record, I do not have it all figured out, but I think I'm like 10, 15 years ahead of most because I've been doing this so long. And so it's really nice to be able to give back to the people, because I genuinely believe like agency owners and people who live this kind of laptop lifestyle and do it to have really cool lives for their family, to take care of their clients, and their, ultimately so we can have freedom and be able to live in this world. I think are like just the coolest people in the world. So it's always a joy for me to get to do these things.
That's awesome, man. I've been on like the online marketing world. I've been in it since 2009, but my journey has been, all over the place. So it started as a yeah.
It's not like that for real.
Not a regular entrepreneurial journey at all.
Yeah,
I know. So I've started as account manager for one of the first SEO companies in Israel. Later, started my own company along with a business partner. And from there, we grew to build the world's first social phone book app, which was in 2011-12. And it just, it went really good customer wise, but we had no idea what we're doing business wise, and how do you price your venture? Like, how do you raise venture capital money? Like all this stuff. So that was an experience. Later on, I went with another business idea to the States and found similar to you with your mastermind, that while I was working on my company, there are a lot of Israeli entrepreneurs that are coming to New York to fulfill their startup dreams. that want some kind of a community, want to have some sort of a connection between themselves and an exposure to the local venture capital world. So I've done that, and in the past, and then I took a break from the materialistic lifestyle, went on a 50-state journey with an RV.
That's awesome.
Um,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah, it's been such a crazy ride, man. But lately, like in the past year, um I've went back into the basics, went back into serving clients, and I think that from what I see, and I heard you talk about it in one of your videos, um, that there are the two types of SEO agency owners. So there's the people who are really fascinated about SEO and about all the little tweaks, and there are people who are more into the business side and how to grow that part. So I would say that I'm somewhere in between, but in the online communities that I'm part of in the SEO world, most of the people are way more on the technical side than the business side. So it was super important for me to hear from you and understand a little bit about your journey, because I believe you said that you've grown three agencies already, to a point of 100K or 100 clients per month. So I would love to, if we go back to 2009, you said that
Yeah,
that's when
2007
the
actually. But
agency
yes,
started.
it was an interesting thing because I had zero interest in starting an agency, and like you, I assumed entrepreneurship was easier than it actually was. And I can remember actually a friend of mine called me up. I was sleeping on my girlfriend's couch, and this is in 2007. And he said, "Hey, I wrote a real estate course and we're going to sell it on the internet." And I remember I said, "We?" Like, no, you wrote a course. You're going to sell it on the internet. And he said, "Well, I don't really know how to do any of that computer stuff." And I said, "Neither do I." I'm like, "I've never done that." And he said, "But yeah, but you're good with computers. You can figure it out." And he hung up the phone on me. And it was a really interesting time because I didn't really have anything else on the horizon. So like after like a day or two, I was like, what else are you going to do? And so I kind of had this field of dreams idea. If you build it, they will come. So I'll just like put up a website, which the first time through, anybody can tell you is like, there's so much, even though like, you can build a website in an hour, first time through, it probably took me 60 days to just figure out Googling every little thing. I even got an angry thing because I was trying to create a squeeze page, and I copied some other guy's squeeze page, and I didn't know what tracking code was, and he had tracking code installed. And he called me. He's like, "You're fucking up all my stats, you copycat son of a bitch." And I was like, "Dude, I just really liked your squeeze page, and I didn't know how to code or program, so I used yours. I'm really sorry." Like, I had no idea. I didn't even know like tracking code was a thing. And I realized in order to do it, you got to get in front of people. Like, so, I learned this whole SEO thing, and I started telling other people about what we have done, and I kept hearing like, "Could you do that for me? Could you get me to?" And so before I knew it, I had this agency that was completely unplanned, and I was just trying to sell our own thing. But I found, like, for me personally, and I think this is true of a lot of people because you mentioned those two things. Some people do that because they love SEO, and those people tend to succeed and be in it for a long time. And they do it because they love building backlinks. They're fascinated by Google. They love listening to all the updates, and they Rand Fishkin and all those like gurus are their best friends. For me, it was always just a means to an end. I was just trying to bring people to a website. Like, I hated, like a lot of SEO in those days, especially, was like you're posting articles to third-party sites, and of course you got to put in a password and prove you're not a robot, and your password is never ever complicated enough. It needs 4 more copies of the Batman symbol. And so I found, I was doing all these things I didn't enjoy, and it kind of, I didn't know it at the time, but my business grew really fast, almost accidentally. Like, now I can do those things intentionally. But at those times, I actually just had a web designer who came to me one time and said, "Hey, I have this one client. Do you think you could help me out?" And I said, "Sure." And unbeknownst to me, he actually had hundreds of clients and was testing people to do all of them. And so when I did one well, he gave me more and more and more. And so I grew this thing by white labeling, as it's called now. But before I knew it, I was deep in this business that I had no idea how to run, and I had employees and things, and it was all kinds of headaches. And at the core of it, like the whole reason I got started was so I could have a really cool life, be able to travel the world and have some freedom and flexibility. And somewhere along the way, I got lost into the world of building backlinks and staring at a screen and lots of client meetings and phone calls. And I've since spent like the next 10 years focusing on like, how do you build a business where you service businesses, but don't have to do all those meetings and don't have to do all those phone calls and don't have to like stare at the screen, but you're doing it in a way where you're still delivering real value to clients. You're still delivering real experience. So it's not like a fly-by-night thing that's not sustainable. On the opposite, it's like a real business that is run by other people who are doing the things you don't want to do, that has systems and processes, and therefore can be executed without you, backlinks get built whether or not you're staring at the screen. I no longer do SEO. I've kind of found, like, for me anyways, better ways of doing it. But having said that, I could still run an SEO agency without having to do any actual SEO. And, that's the real key is, like, to me, like, I think the best thing you can do is build a lifestyle agency, like you said, like traveling by RV in 50 states and knowing while that's going on that your clients are getting taken care of and that things are happening and results are being produced and people are happy. That's our kind of business, I think.
It's fascinating. And I want to hear more about it, but I want us to go back a second and go to this first hire of yours. Okay. So you got this client, all of a sudden he's throwing at you tens of new clients. Who was your first hire in your business? How did it went? Where did you find him? Like, take me into those specifics, because like for us, we're used to, and us, I mean agency owners, SEO experts, however you want to call it, we're used to just take everything on us, and we're trying to give the client all the answers. So how did you manage this?
Well, I'll tell you, in the beginning, I managed it very poorly by being stressed out about it and working long weeks. So, people used to say to me in the beginning, "Oh, you're so lucky because you can work from home," because that wasn't really a thing like it is now. And, you don't have to go to the office and things like that. Now, I used to be like, I'm the only one on Sunday night sitting alone in a dark room answering client emails. Like, to me, you're the lucky one. You get to check out on Friday and you get a steady paycheck. Like, there were a lot of things that I admired about the kind of life that most people kind of took for granted. But when it came to my first hire, it was a she, actually. Her name was Anna. And one of the big tasks I was doing was submitting a lot of content back in those SEO days. So I hired somebody to do a content kind of thing. And I knew absolutely zero about hiring. And I remember going through it. And I think a lot of people can share this kind of experience where, so because I didn't know anything about hiring, Anna was let's just say not the best hire. Let's say that in a nice way. And she was a really nice person, mind you, but as like an employee qualified for the job, I remember she would write posts and I would spend twice as long like editing and cleaning up the language as it took her to write it. And at some point I realized the simple truth that my employee was making my life harder and not easier. And I'm like, I hired somebody to make my life easier and they're making it harder, and I'm paying them on top of it to cut into my profits to make my life harder, because I end up rewriting everything she does anyway. And so it sent me down this long journey. It took me years to figure out that a lot of why people have a hard time hiring is traditional hiring processes are broken in every single fucking way. They're optimized for getting B and C level people. And what most people do is they collect some resumes or they post a job online, and then people bid on that job, and then they interview people and ask them a couple of questions, and they get responses back. And based on who interviews well, they give them a job, and then they give that person some time, and they find out, like, I don't know, weeks, months, days, somewhere in that line, that they're probably not that good at it. And so, like most companies, that's how I modeled my hiring, because that's just what I saw everybody else do. And it was actually, I was reading a book by Perry Marshall, who's a really well-known Google AdWords kind of guru, probably the most famous in that niche. And he said what he did, he considered it like a band. And it was a really interesting metaphor, he said, because when you go to play for a band, if any of you guys are musicians, I play guitar. when you go to play for a band, the band doesn't ask you, can you give me your resume and we'll talk about the last 3 bands you worked for and I'll interview you. The opposite. A band says, get out your guitar and let's play a song. And in 5 minutes, you learn more together about trying to play a song than you would any amount of talking about it. And so this evolved for me out of like one of the real key game changers is the trial assignment, the little paid trial assignment. And so what I would do is I would give people a random topic and have them write a paid article. And I found if I gave 20 people, like virtual assistants, a paid article, that 10 of them wouldn't even write it. They would literally just disappear on me. And so I had this experience a lot of times in the past. Before that, I would hire those people and then a week later realize, okay, I don't think this person works for me anymore because they're gone, right? So and of those 10, I would get like 5 or 6 of them that just for different reasons, like weren't readable. It would exactly what I described with Anna, where I'd have to redo it and critique it or those things. So I would get 4 people who would write a decent article. And then I would give those 4 people a second article and I'd say, write me one more on this topic. And inevitably 2 of those would be good. And I could end up with 2 hiring, like 1 or 2 good hires out of all those things. And it was such a game changer for me to approach hiring like band practice, like rather than say, here's the job, I'll just pay you to try something together. And so it's much more designed to test people for their actual capabilities. I just had a girl in my mastermind who had told me she went through this process and for the first time in her life, she has the best hire she's ever had. This person is working for $250 an hour, which is a good wage where they're from, but for her is very, very affordable. And she said it was kind of amazing because she had never done the trial assignment thing and she'd had all these like people disappearing and things like that. And this was the first time she said, one of the tasks I had him do as part of the trial was, I'm going to pay you for this trial assignment on TransferWise, which I think has changed their name to Wise. I need you to set up an account so I can send you money. She said of the 20 people or so who applied, like 8 of them couldn't figure out TransferWise, right? So if they can't solve like a basic problem for how to register for a website and basic things like that, like what kind of problem solving ability do you think they're going to bring in your company? So that like easily disqualifies 8 people that in the past I would have previously hired. And when you get past that point where you can start hiring and bringing in good people to do things, it takes so much of the burden off of you. And it's a hard thing mentally to let go when you reach that hiring stage, which is like stage 2 of agency growth. Because in that point, firstly, usually you don't have like huge margins and it's almost always easier and faster to do it yourself. But I say to people, is the goal to go fast or is the goal to go far? And if the goal is to go fast, then do everything yourself because you are correct. You will do it faster yourself. Nobody will ever be as fast as you in your own business. But if the goal is to go far, you are limited by 40 to 80 hours of output a week. And if you're like us, where we're parents of young kids, it's more like 14 to 16 hours a week, depending on how much, how cranky they are that day and how well they slept and naps and shits and changing clothes. And so the more you dial this process in this hiring thing, it enables you to go from like a 14 to 80 hour output. Suddenly you can do thousands of hours of productive things and not have that burden fall on you. And you can relax knowing that like good people are taking care of it using the systems and processes and training that you have in place so that, and this is the real key, the real reason to do this, by the way, what everybody forgets is because it actually ultimately produces a better, more consistent experience for your clients, right? Like if Ray Kroc had to flip every burger at McDonald's, McDonald's would not be what McDonald's is. But instead he has thousands and thousands of employees in every country that manage those things for him so that McDonald's can, in my opinion, a shit product, but can consistently produce that shit product in a very consistent way. When you start to run your agency like that, everything stops falling on you as like the be everything kind of person. I think it's a really interesting stage when you get through the hiring. And the agency growth is really, really interesting because you mentioned before this, I don't know if this was when we were recording or not, but it's very nonlinear. Like entrepreneurship is nonlinear. Like I know for me, the first 6 months of running my agency, I think I made exactly $0, like zero. Not like, and then suddenly somebody asked me if I could help them, and all of a sudden, like it went like in the next 6 months, went to 100 clients, like almost exponentially faster than I could manage and handle it, or at least knew how to do at that point. And it's kind of like that, right? And the interesting thing is, in each step of the journey, the thing that propels you forward is different than the the thing that will like got you to this point. So like in the beginning stage, when you're in stage one and you're just a freelancer, it's really simple. Is you got to get in front of the business owners you intend to influence. You got to make them an offer, and you got to practice that skill over and over until you start hearing yes out of the situation. And when you do that, you'll have clients, and you'll have a new thing called delivery problems. And the delivery problems is when you have to start bringing in help. And then eventually you'll get good enough at bringing in help that your thing will get even bigger. And suddenly you'll have to manage it if you want to go through those stages. I mean, it's really up to you how you want to build your business. And when you get into the management stages, there's a different set of skills to manage it than it used to be to get to that point. And you'll find you're interrupted all day long, and you have to put like boundaries and measurements at times, because otherwise what'll happen is you'll have all these problems thrown at you all day, and 99% of them are just not that important, and they feel like putting out fires. You have to have like systems in place to focus on the 1% that's really going to move the needle, and have ways of dealing with the other 99% that are largely distractions, and manage those in like a time and energy efficient way. And when you do that, you can grow past that. And it's a really interesting journey, because you're constantly tested, you're constantly learning new skills, and almost always like the thing that keeps you or propels you forward will then get you stuck. Like, so for example, in the first stage, you have to like really sell and get in front of people. But once you do that and you get past that stage, being the salesperson and all those things will hamper the delivery and all your systems in place. And what you'll find is like your sales will like roller coaster. As you make a bunch of sales, suddenly you're responsible for a bunch of delivery. You take your foot off the sales gas, and it like goes in these waves, unless you learn to be able to manage both of those things at the same time. And so it's kind of a fascinating journey, this whole agency growth. But, you know, obviously you can tell I'm really passionate about it, because when you do get it in place, the benefits are just so worth it. You get clients who stay for a long time and pay you and are really happy. You get a really cool lifestyle, and you get, you know, to be free to do whatever you want, for, you know, whether that's sit around and play video games or watch Netflix, or, you know, go to the beach with your kids, which is mostly how I like to use it.
Amazing. Two things about it. First of all, I can totally relate to what you said about the hiring process. And I've recently hired my first VA, and I've watched some tips and tricks on YouTube on how to do it. And instead of just, like you say, go over all the different resumes and stuff like that, which would be a total waste of time, I just told them, look up my name on YouTube, find the latest video that I posted, and post a comment. Just a simple task. And it's amazing that in the first 2 weeks, no one has even read, I believe, no one has even read the actual proposal. Yeah. And once someone did, she's the one I'm currently hiring, and I'm very happy, because I feel like the skills, the technical skills of the SEO and of everything, this is secondary. This is something that everyone can learn. This is not the main focus for me. Was find someone who is able to learn and research by themselves, and who's passionate about learning.
Yeah.
So if you do some kind of a quiz, some kind of a test on this preliminary part, I think you will find that the outliners and the people were most suitable for your business to handle multiple stuff, right? So I do SEO, and I do also Google Ads, and I need at the beginning a person to be my right hand and to help me with all those. And so that's number one. Number two is the thing with hiring, and again, I would love to hear from your experience, is it's not just how many good hires can I make, but how can I delegate the task to them? Because again, like now I found that sometimes I have a bulk of hours that I'm not spending all of them, and I just don't know how to put more on them rather than on me to go further with my goals, with whatever I'm currently working on. So I would love to hear from you how you push all those tasks from you to the people working for you in the best way possible, without you feeling like you lost control, or without you feeling like there's too much burden on yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a balance, and I'll tell you, part of the challenge is we care, right? Like, so we're really anal about certain details, especially the ones that matter, especially about the ones that produce the results and things like that. Firstly, I just want to say I really like your hiring test of like, go to find me on YouTube, post a comment on my channel to actually test them. I first learned this from one of my mentors. His name's Ken. He's like an OG, amazing guy. And he managed a coaching business and a law firm. He owned both of those. And one of the things Ken used to do is he would write, if you read this job description, write apples on your cover letter and send us that. And part of the reason he did that is because there's a certain percentage of people that just see like a job or an opportunity as another number, just like kind of have this hit and run attitude. I have family members like that, so I'm not pointing any fingers, but they're just looking for a job. They're just looking for any old job where they can just, kind of do the bare minimum to get a paycheck. That's a thing in our society. And one of the things is, I call them resume bombers, but they just like copy and paste and spam their resume around, and somebody will call them back and they'll get a job and they'll get hired and they'll be able to pay their bills. And that's all they're looking to do. And that's totally cool. But you don't want to build a business around those people. You want people who are specifically a good fit for you. So one of the things Ken used to do that was so damn simple to me was, if they didn't write apples on their cover letter, walked over to the garbage and just dropped it. Now, I still use this to this present day. I actually just posted, I need somebody just for like a one-off task so I posted on Fiverr, and I said, I need this one-off task. I'm happy to pay you hourly. If you're open to being paid hourly, write the word hourly to start your reply. Like, if you read this, and you'd be amazed, like 60% of the people do not write the word hourly because they didn't read a damn word of what you said. They just copy and paste their canned response, right? So I know if they've written the word hourly, they've at least read what the job entails, right? And like, if they've considered that they actually want to do this specific task. So for me, it's like, I just eliminate 60% of the people. Now, as far as the other thing you kind of talked about, there's different things that can keep delegation stuck. One of those things is the mental barrier to just always wanting to do it yourself, being a perfectionist, wanting it done the right way. Another is, and this is a thing that I think is actually now I consider to be a prerequisite of hiring, which is to have like really detailed instructions. So before I do any task in my agency, we have it set up inside of Asana, which is a project management software. There's lots of good ones. I'm not saying use Asana, like, I just happen to like how Asana is. But inside of Asana, we have like we use Loom videos, and I'll screen record. This is how to do this task. These are the important things. And I will add somebody in Asana as responsible for that and give them only the instructions to be able to execute tasks. And part of the reason is I want to have really clear, detailed instructions where a person can execute a task given only the instructions with zero input from me, because I know my agency is a lot more scalable if they can just watch a video, understand what to do, and go do it. So that's part of it, is having like really good detailed instructions. I didn't know this in the beginning, but when I would hire people, it'd be like, okay, well, get to work. And not only that, this comes up a lot where they like, you give them things to do and then you go work on your own things. And then somewhere they meet you a couple days later and say, I'm finished, boss. What do you want me to do? And you realize, oh shit, I don't have anything for you to do. And you scramble to like delegate tasks to them. So having that set up where you have clear instructions and processes. Also, like, I always have clear instructions and processes for what to do when I have not given you work. Like, for example, like I have a video editing guy. When I don't have videos for you to edit, go through our YouTube channel and just start marking the videos and start bumping up their SEO value, right? Like, just start, putting on some SEO value into those, right? Like, there's things you can do if I haven't given you instructions. The third thing that I see a lot, and this is actually probably the biggest issue that prevents people from delegating, it is understanding the difference between custom and customization. And they sound very similar in the English language, but they are a great deal different in execution. And in the beginning, I did a whole lot of custom work, which meant somebody said, "Hey, have you ever designed a WordPress website?" I would say, "Yes, I have. I can make you a WordPress website." And I would go self-teach myself WordPress if I needed to and learn whatever plugins. And if they said, "Hey, have you ever done Google Ads?" I would say, "Yes, I can do Google Ads for you." And then they would say, "Have you ever run a Facebook ad?" "Yeah, I'll run a Facebook ad for you." "Hey, you guys are doing SEO. Can you help me with this other thing?" And what would happen inevitably is I would take on all these other projects. Now, of course, if you're doing a lot of things, they're not like paying you top dollar for those things. So you have small margins. So I was always trying to find like somebody really cheap who could do a good job and delegate that. And it was constantly hard. And what I found is if you do custom work, in my experience, you can manage about 5-10 clients before you start like working like 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And what I found is part of the structure that allows you to scale better. And it's hard because in the beginning, it means less money today, but it means a lot more money tomorrow and a lot more stability in your agency, which is, the age old pick a niche. But I take it even further and say, pick a niche within a niche and then choose what I call the $100 bill in the niche. And I'm not saying this is the only way. There's lots of ways to be successful in this, but this is my favorite way of doing it. So like, for example, if I'm working in the personal injury space, which is the space I actually work in, before I picked a niche that was lawyers. Lawyers is very broad. And when you find out, that means everything from like a guy who just started a law firm in his basement selling, little basic documents to his friends and family for $99 to the personal injury lawyer who has 30 locations and has billboards and TV ads in every state. So I look at like almost always people's niches are too broad for scaling. And so one of the things that I did was like, okay, I narrowed it down from lawyer to specifically personal injury lawyer. And I think even a niche within a niche. And what I found is there's a lot of guys who are at the bottom who are broke and struggling. They're good people, but they're not usually good people to build a business around if they're broke and struggling. And so I kind of excluded all those people. So I started working with law firms that are usually between 15 and 20 clients. Those are kind of my favorites, as well as some of the really, really big, heavy hitters, because I like that they just have budgets and they make things happen and they do things. And what I found is that's like a niche within a niche, right? Like, so it's like the lawyers in that niche who are on TV. And I'll tell you why this is so important to develop one service is because the way our agency is run now, I start every client 90% finished before I get the client, right? Because we're delivering the same thing over and over. And the difference is that word I mentioned, customization, right? So when I run this marketing campaign for this lawyer, it has their custom colors, their brand, their logos, their images, but we're only changing like 10% of it. I compare it the difference between like if you went to a restaurant and you said, "Can you make pizza?" And they said, "Yeah." And they said, "Do you guys do baklava?" And you said, "Okay, I'll make a baklava." And then they said, "Can you make a traditional English fish and chips?" And then you make that. And then they said, "Do you guys make homemade cakes?" And you do that. That's custom, and custom will suck the fucking life out of you. And it's good for 5 or 10 clients, but it does not really scale past that typically in my experience. Customization is like, hey, we're McDonald's. We sell burgers, fries, and Cokes. That when McDonald's first started, that's all they did. Burgers, fries, and Cokes. You can get 3 things. And customization looks like, I don't really like pickles. Could you take the pickles off my burger? Or I'm a big ketchup person. Could you add some extra ketchup? Or can I get that with extra cheese? Sure, you can get that. But at the end of the day, you're given a burger every single time, and it's the same burger over and over. And so a lot of times we think clients want custom solutions and we derive our value from it. But it comes from switching to that entrepreneurship mentality where you realize what people really want is results. So we just had a guy in our mastermind who I kind of gave him a little aha. So he was doing web design. And like most web designers, selling custom website here, custom website there, and thinking that his value comes from that. And I said to him, I said something along the lines of like, if you had a website that could produce results for people in this niche, do you think they would want you to make it custom for them? Or if you could just like plug and play something you already had working and it could be up in an hour, which one of those do you think would be more desirable for them? And we thought about it for a little bit, and we just kind of compared everything that was involved. And for like a custom website, usually there's a lot of back and forth. Hey, I sent you a mock-up. Can you send me your thoughts? Okay, I send you my thoughts. I'll go edit it. Oh, can you move the image over here? Actually, can you use this image? Actually, I don't like that title. Can you change that title? And if anybody's ever made a website, this can sometimes like take like 6 months of just back and forth. I call it ping pong.
Yeah.
So he went through the ping pong process and created this really kick-ass cleaning website, which is his niche. He used to own a cleaning company, and now he designs cleaning websites. And one of the things is cleaning companies get the same question over and over, which people call them up, can you quote me for this job? So one of the things he did is he made a cleaning website where it quotes work right on the website, right? So there's no like third-party system or tool needed, and it weeds out all the tire kickers, because if somebody's priced a quote with you and calls you, they probably want the cleaning job. If they so I said to him, I was like, you could do one of two things now. You could go then look for another client who needs a whole new custom solution, or you could recognize that now you have an asset called this really badass, like advantageous cleaning website, and you could find somebody else who needs this exact website, and the only thing you would change is the colors and their phone number and those kind of things. And you would charge the same amount of money, but the difference is you could install this one in an hour. In fact, you could take on all the risk. You could make an irresistible offer and say, hey, I noticed like you have this old website. I bet you mine will convert better than yours and weed out a lot of the tire kickers because it has a quoting function on here. I would love to just give you this website for 2 months. And if you like it, you can lease it from me for $199 a month for so as long as you like it and use it. And I'll love to just give it for you 60 days. If at the end of 60 days, you tell me this website is not working for you, just tell me and I'll install your old one back. No harm, no foul. But if it does work and you want to keep paying me, leave it there. And now he's got both an irresistible offer, but from a delivery perspective, what has happened is how much work is it for him to go change color to this, logo to that, phone number to there, bingo bongo. Like he's done the website in 10 fucking minutes, right? And so a lot of times when we run into scaling issues, it's almost always a function. I shouldn't say almost always, but it's frequently a function of just doing too much custom work. And it usually just comes from we're good people. If somebody wants to help from you and they ask you, can you help me with this? It's natural instinct to want to say yes. But if you're not careful, you'll get into a situation where you're doing 80 hours a week of too many things that have too low margin and you can't hire people. And you want to be in the business where I'm just copy and pasting the website, changing a few details and getting up and running. And then you systematize that and put processes in that. So even though it's only 10 minutes of work, he can get a virtual assistant to do that 10 minutes of work, and he can have clear instructions that have him step up and do that. And I found when you do that, a 5 to 10 client custom agency is like 60 to 80 hours a week. A 50 client customization agency, you can do in like 10 hours a week, mostly just managing the team. Right. And it's a better experience for the clients, right? Because they don't want the custom website as much as we think. They don't want all the ping pong and back and forth and send me this image. They're like, just get it up and running and get my phone ring with people who aren't tire kickers who want to buy my cleaning services. And you can do that like relatively quickly using, that kind of system. So it's definitely a mindset shift. It probably took me about 10 years because I used to just love doing custom stuff. I always felt like my value was solving problems for people. And now I see it as the value is actually the assets we create. Like in this case, the cleaning website is the value, this system that's already been created. And so I'm showing up offering them the value. But what I'm not offering is like, hey, I'll create this whole custom, complicated back and forth mess for you. Rather, I'm saying I got this thing that already works. I'd like to plug and play it in your business. Would you let me? I'll give you an irresistible way to try that out and see if it works for you. When you do that, agencies scale with far less effort. And so that's a long-winded way of answering that question, but it's a deep question that I think a lot of people struggle with. And I've been in the situation where you can have 5 or 10 clients and you can't seem to break past it. You don't understand why. And it's actually just a structure. And it almost comes to like narrowing, starting the job finished, and you'll have a better agency and it'll be better for your clients and you'll do less.
I love it. With me, in my last round, and this is what I've been in the last year or so. So my niche is the service businesses in the US, and my niche within the niche was advertising mostly for the Israeli Israeli community in the US. So those are people mostly doing the locksmith and the garage doors repairs and the junk car removal and air duct cleaning and all those different uh, um, different local services. And I've done two things that I can totally relate. So with locksmith, because now I have such an immense amount of knowledge, and I know how Google Ads, what are the ads that work, how to build it right to the point where I'm getting amazing conversion rate and everything. The amount of work on my end is really minimal, and the outcome for the client is optimal. So this is amazing. On the other hand, I've recently launched an online course for local ads. It's called Local Ads Mastery, and it's Google Ads course for local services. And in this case, I've been, struggling with the Facebook ads, and here I think that I'm maybe not specific enough, based just from this conversation of us, because I think that maybe if this would have been, or if I targeted more specifically, I might be able to get better results, even though the course itself is for anyone in the services. And I have a roofer who recently finished the course and told me that right as he finished it, he got an amazing results. And same with someone from a garage door repair company. So, but I definitely agree with you on the fact that it's how you focus on this niche within niche. Yes, Israelis in the US is a niche within niche, but maybe on a specific sector or a specific service, right? So if it was locksmiths in the US or Israeli locksmiths in the US, which is a super specific niche, I could have done way more job for much less time. So yeah, this is a very valid take.
It's a little bit counterintuitive too, right? Because like usually when we think about building a business, like we have these dreams and hopes of building it really big and being really successful. So the first thought is like, I'm going to get as many of blank as I can. And it took me probably about 7 years of running an agency to realize, like, even if somebody could give you every client in the world, like 10-20% of them, you should just turn around and give right the fuck back, right? Like, because they're just not good fits. Either they're broke, they're high maintenance. Often those two things go together. They're not going to be a good fit. They don't value advertising. They don't know how to close on. They blame people. They're like, there's lots of reasons why somebody might not be a good fit. And so I remember, there's a guy who came into my mastermind, and I'm really, really proud of him, because, one of the things that we're teaching people is how to take your agency money and turn it into passive income money, so that like you're building assets while you sleep, right? Like you literally wake up richer every day than you went to sleep if you do it right. And he's built his passive income to the point where he actually doesn't need his agency anymore. But when he first came to me, he had a promise that was for local businesses in his area, which is in Ohio. And the promise said something like, if you're a business owner, I can increase your profits. Now, on the surface, like, I understand where he's coming from, because he's trying to reach as many businesses as he can, and he wants to help them increase their business. But what ended up happening is, by thinking too broad, the promise had like no teeth to it, because I'm a business owner and I don't even think he's talking to me, right? Like, I'm a business. And what does that mean? I'm going to increase your profits, right? I've found that even though you may get less hands, there's a hidden metric in this running an agency, because I'll show people who show me their ads and their numbers. And the hidden metric is, are the right people coming through your system? And there's no easy way to measure that by just looking at the raw numbers. And I'll give you an example where this comes up. I see people who are obsessed with the number of appointments they book. And we've actually gone completely, like, we don't do sales calls in our agency anymore. We close without the phone, just do it over text. But having said that, as somebody who's done a lot of phone calls over the years, Nobody tells you that most of the phone calls are like people who are like 3 out of 10 about the idea of working with you. And they have this kind of folded arm, kind of like, all right, convince me, sell me this thing now, big boy. And a lot of times they're not even the right people to begin with, more often than not. And so, yes, you get to check, like, I got an appointment booked, but if they're the wrong people, like, what's the fucking point, right? Like, what's the point of having a 90-minute call with somebody who's not the right fit for what you're doing? And so in a lot of ways, if you get just 2 people to come through, you can be more productive than 40 if they're 2 of the right people and the 40 are all, the wrong people for various reasons. And so one of the things that, we're really big on is like, get more specific in your promise and it'll automatically get better. So like, for example, if I say, if you're a personal injury law firm with between 5 and 20 clients right now, we have a new way to take the leads you've already paid for and convert them into motor vehicle accident cases at an average of $6,000 a piece. That's a more powerful promise than, hey, if you're a business owner anywhere, I can make you some money. And so it's really counterintuitive because like we kind of go into this thinking you want everybody. And it took me a lot of years of actually getting everybody to realize, this is just my experience, but I'm not saying this is an absolute rule, but I found about 10% of clients are really good clients because they're just good people and that's how they are and they're easy and fun to work with. 10% of people are bad clients, and there's literally not a damn thing in the world you can do to make them happy. They will blame you no matter what happens. 80% of them will go based on the framework and the perceptions and the expectations you set, and most agencies don't know how to do that, so they tend to experience more bad clients. And what will happen is if you do that, is clients will leave every 3 to 4 months. And I experienced this for a lot of years, or you sign people. There's nothing more infuriating, by the way, like when you do SEO, and you promise somebody it's going to take them 8 months to rank, and at month 5 or 6, they quit, like right before their phone's about, like you steadily improve them for 6 months. And now it's almost, they're at the point, the rankings where the phone is going to ring and they fire you. And I started to realize that if you get a client and then 3 months later they fire you or let you go and they're disappointed, and this is how most agencies run, and then you replace them with new sales and you do all the proposals and prospecting, then every 3 months you're building a new fucking business, right? So it's like, it's like this uphill effort, right? And one of the things that we've strived for is when you understand how important it is getting the right people, you can have, like my oldest client, I just messaged him this morning, has been with me since 2009. And I'll tell you, understand how, and I wish I could tell you most of my clients were like that. That's not the case, but life is a lot fucking easier when you start each month knowing the clients are there and that you have the systems and you have the processes and things in place. Your agency starts to build momentum because instead of like every 3 months you're rebuilding the thing, it starts like constantly inching forward. And so you see a much better benefit. And so much of that comes out of just being clear and specific in who you want. And there's a simple way of doing that. I usually just look at who's the worst couple of clients you ever had. Let's like intentionally push those people away. And who are the best clients you've ever had? How can we like make more of those people happen on purpose? And what you'll find is if you build an agency that's built around like the cool kind of clients that are like specific, they can pay you, they understand the value, it benefits them, it makes sense for them to pay a long time. And that's a whole other thing, is like not everybody's optimized to capitalize on your solution. Like for example, one of the offers we're doing right now involves like a shitload of retargeting and helping them close the leads they've already spent years paying for. Well, it doesn't make sense if they haven't spent years paying for leads, right? So it makes much more sense if they're already spending money on a business or on leads and things like that. And so when you get like super hyper narrow and specific, you end up with like better quality clients out of the thing. And most people don't realize when you do this, who's choosing the clients? Like usually in the beginning, I used to always feel like clients chose me. It was a privilege. Like, I will be your SEO guy. Thank you so much. But now that I'm really calling out, if you're a dear personal injury lawyer, if you're between this and this and you do this, then I have a really cool new thing for you. Who's choosing the clients? Like we are, right? And so the more you own the fact that we're choosing the clients and you get really clear and specific about that, the message just has some teeth. It has some bite that it wouldn't otherwise have if you try and speak to everybody. And I've done the trying to speak to everybody. Usually, if you're trying to speak to everybody, you're telling everybody about what you do. So it's like, hey, I do SEO for local businesses. Call me. And that's any local business. But of course, there's only like 12,000 other people saying the exact same thing, and it's hard to stand out. When you have like a message that's clear and specific for somebody with some teeth, and they can tell it's for them, you get almost always you get better quality people consistently out of it because you've chosen them intentionally for a very specific set of reasons.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And I think, to add to what you just said with screening clients, when you're shooting broad and just spray and pray, it's you're just trying to catch everyone, and it's very hard to really differentiate yourself from others. But when you're focused, you can also determine the tone of how you and the client are working. And I give you an example. I just had a new client coming on board, and at the beginning they started speaking to me from a very patronizing in a very patronizing way.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like I owe them. And so I write that
you work for me, condescending kind of.
Very condescending. And I cut it right at the start, and I said, hey, listen, I don't appreciate this tone. If you want to keep this relationship going, this have to go. Keep your feedback professional, and there's no problem. Everything would be done. And later they give me a call, and they actually apologize for that. And when you're positioning yourself as an expert in a specific field, in a specific niche, people appreciate it, and they want to work with you, and they would cooperate with you, in the way. And again, it's not an exaggerating request to just be civilized and just have a friendly communication between you and the client. But when you're shooting, all over the place, like, who are you? You're just a service provider that I can go for a different one will give me the same result. But when you're the guy for local service Israelis in this case, then no, I want this guy because he understands my pain points.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing too, because like you said, when the messaging is weak, almost always you'll feel like you're in client scarcity because they seem really hard to get, and there seems like to be not enough of them. And even when you do get one, like, you can kind of feel the competition behind you. Like, like if they're considering you for SEO or whatever your service is, often, they're considering 7 other people that they just got proposals from. And so you really kind of feel the heat, and you feel like you have to take it. And that results in kind of a lot of what I call like the client underling relationship, where, one of my friends put it really simply, is like, I feel like I have 120 different bosses. People would be like, you're so lucky you have a 120 person agency. And he's like, I just feel like I have 120 different bosses. And the more you get like this kind of clear and specific focused, and you choose your clients, one of the things that comes with it is you start to realize like you can get more of them, and you just frankly take less bullshit, right? Like, I actually just had this where I was working with one of the top law firms in Texas, and the guy said, hey, I need to set you up with my office manager because she has all the logins and the things that you need. Or not my office manager, my marketing manager. And for whatever reason, this person like saw me as a threat. Yeah. And with like, kind of like you could just feel it tangibly, where they're questioning everything you're doing and trying to undermine you. And it's like, look, I got connected with you to get the logins. And it was really, really interesting, because there would have been a time where I would have like really, really tried to make the peace and been like, hey, like, I apologize and blah, blah, blah. And I would have taken the high ground. But when you're not in client scarcity, when you're not in that, like, I just wrote like a really kind message to the guy. I said, look, here's how I work. I need these things. I've asked your team for them, and they're not doing that. Like, I want to work with you, not with them. If that's a problem, or if that's a deal breaker for you, I'm like, I totally understand, and we can just walk away and part as friends. Or if you think there's another way we can get it done, using somebody else or whatever, I would appreciate that. Where do you want to go from here? But that's like a very kind way of saying like, no, I'm not taking this shit. I didn't
Right.
sign up to be answerable to you. You're not my boss. I don't work for you. I'm a partner
Right.
in this deal, and I can go get another client and run this for somebody else. In fact, if you don't want to do it, I'll fucking run it for your competitor and they'll get the benefit of it, right? So when you start to like do that, like when you get out of that client scarcity, you actually like you recognize your value and you'll own it more, as you put it. Like, I'm an expert. Like, hey, there ain't many people who do what I do, right? So like, help me do this so I can benefit you guys. I'm not your enemy in this, and like, I'm not trying to steal your job. I'll let you guys do all the things you do, but I'm not going to fight you on this kind of shit. And there's a real magic when you reach the point where it's tangible that they need you more than you need them. And then you stop having those relationships like you described, which is one of the worst parts of running an agency, is when you feel like they kind of own your soul, where it's like, well, the client sent me an email and asked a meeting, so I have to take this meeting. That's very different than like having a
At
client
2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is the meetings are all at different times. One person wants it early, one person wants it late, one person wants it on a Sunday. It all of a sudden interrupts your entire life, work flow. There's nothing worse than you're like at the park with the family on a Sunday. Hold on, honey. I just got to take this call. I'll just be a minute. And then like an hour and a half later, you're still answering to the client. It's a really powerful place to just be like, here's how I work. Do you want this or not? Right? Like if that's outside of how you want to do this, that's totally cool. But I'm okay with walking away. And when you get in that place, like, I think the agency game as a whole just gets a lot more fun, because you're not just bending over for people who kind of like crack the whip. But it does take some practice, like you mentioned, because the first time somebody kind of just comes at you with this condescending, you work for me tone, I'm paying you, do what I say. Like, there's okay, I'm sorry. Like, it's very easy to fall into that. And, it takes some practice. And I probably did it wrong for a lot of years, but I'll tell you what actually helped me to understand it was, I went from like 0 to 100 clients way faster than I actually knew how to manage and do that. Like, I got plugged into like a web design company that just had shit tons of work and inundated me with it. And because of it, I grew like really, really fast. And I got to see like a whole spectrum of clients. And one of the things I learned is that when you get into it in the beginning, like, your idea is like, I want as many clients as possible. I want to grow this as big, and I'm make all the monies. I'm going to be super rich and all those things. And then when you get a bunch of clients, when you're at 100 clients, there's 0% of you that thinks, you know what I need right now is 200 clients, right? And you start to realize that like, not all clients are created equal. Not all situations are equally beneficial. Like, for example, one client you may be able to help make a couple of $1,000s, and one client you may be able to make $100,000. Like, they're not equal, even in the value you provide, even if you like them equally. And you start to recognize where you're best suited to contribute, who you're best suited to help. And the more you can get clear on that and design your agency on purpose. Like, one of the things I'm really big on is like, business needs to be intentional. Like, it's not just like, hey, let's get any client who's gracious enough to give us our credit card. We want to choose them. We want to choose our employees. We want to choose our systems. We want to like be very intentional about the thing. We want to choose our hours. We want to choose how we work. We want to choose our structures. We want to choose when to work, when not to work. We want to choose, all of those things, the software and the tools we use. Like, and the more you own that, the less shit you'll put up with. Because putting up with shit is the worst part, because there's nothing worse than you leave the 9-to-5 world so you can start this agency. And then you feel like you just have like 20 9-to-5 bosses that just all have a different schedule and all demand different things from you. And the more you can be like, no, I'm autonomous and I'm bringing value, and I'm going to do it in a way that's beneficial to me. If that's cool with you, let's work together. If it's not, I'll find somebody else who benefits from that. You'll just have more fun with it. Like, there's something powerful about what you did, where you just write them an email and said like, hey, I don't appreciate that. Like, this is my nice way of saying, don't do that again, or there won't be an again.
Exactly. And obviously, for whoever will watch this video, it might be applicable for a lot of people. But I think like, when you're maybe below the 6 figures annually, it might be more tricky, right? If it's your first client, or if it's your second client, you would be shaken, and you probably won't write this response. But I think that your focus, and where I'm trying to get with my business is from the 6 to the 7 figures. So it's a little bit, we're in a little bit different state than people who are just starting with their business. So the response, would adjust based on how many clients you have, based on the income level and stuff like that. So if not everyone would use this method, I totally get it. But for those who are in a position like me, trying to grow their business from 6 to 7, I think it would make much more room mentally and spiritually, and it just, I remember, before this call, I meditated for 2 seconds. I just wanted to put myself in the zone. Because I knew I was going to go on the phone with them after I sent the email, and I was already willing to let go, right? Like, even
Yeah.
if this ends, I was okay with that. But if it's your first hire, and you have to pay the bills, so obviously this won't be your go-to action, and it's fine. I wanted to hear to ask you, Frankie, how did you with 3 of your business? But by the way, until now we talked about just one with this web designer that pushed you, and I would love to hear about the 2 other businesses that you've started. But how did you separate yourself from the sales, or from the face of the business, meaning that people want Frankie to do the work? And in my case, like the agency name is my name, so it's connected, and people expect me to do all the work, especially the sales, but also the back end, and want to be on top of everything that's happening with their accounts and stuff like that. So how did you work with that?
Well, to be honest with you, like, I'm big on designing the businesses so that, like, and this is an under optimized lever in business that I don't think enough people consider, which is called fun. And some things in the business are actually fun. Like, I like writing ads and creating marketing pieces. And I actually also really like talking to my clients. And so those are the 2 things in the business that I still do. And it's not because I couldn't, build a system or a process and outsource those things, but I do them because, I don't know, I just like it, right? But I'll tell you, like, for me, the things that I hated doing, like, with a passion, I hate ad managers and backlinks and screens and, like, technology. I'm not saying I can't use them. But I think there's 2 things to optimize for. One is, like, are you good at it? And 2 is, do you enjoy doing it? And I've made it really, really simple, where I still do things in my agency because I like doing it. And those 2 things I look at are am I good at them? And are they fun for me? And so I design my agency largely around those things. So having said that, most of my clients, they interface with me. I do it on my own terms. Like, one of the things I've learned is how to do it with more leverage. Like, for example, I give all my clients like a 2 to 5 minute video update every second Friday. And they get that from me personally. I could outsource that and I could have somebody do that, but I like doing it. I like tell them how things are going and all the exciting things we're building behind the scenes and what's going on in their world. Having said that, like, how do you get away from, like, it being all about you? Is a lot of it has to do with how you get them in the door in the first place. Like, this is hard to understand when you first get into, but the expectation frame you give, like, I've always said that the people who sell, like, e-commerce and tangible things have a lot easier expectation setting than we do, because, like, I got my phone here. If I'm trying to sell you a phone, it's a much simpler sale because it's a tangible thing. You can hold it in your hand. You know what you're buying. Almost all of the things that we sell in our world, in our agency space, they're intangible, meaning somebody cannot immediately pick it up. They can't bite it. They can't taste it, smell it, touch it. And for that reason, they don't always have, like, a clear mental picture of what they're actually buying. And it took me a lot of years of doing this to realize there's 4 key areas of expectations. And these are so important. And it is, a client wants to know, what result are we going to produce together? Like, measurably, what are we going to achieve? how long is that result going to take? In other words, the time, the cost, how much are we going to have to spend together to achieve that result? And number 4 is the communication. And what I find is if you build your agency focused on the result that you're going to produce for them, and with those other surrounding pieces, with a good communication structure and a time and cost effective way, then you can keep the focus on the deliverable about that result and producing it together. And then it's not necessary that it has to be all you. Like, for example, one of the things that we're doing right now is I have clients who've spent like years making like testimonials and awesome branding videos and things like that. And nobody's ever took them in a comprehensive way and used them on the clients that are interested in their law firm. So we take all the shit they've spent years making, organize it into a comprehensive way, and through ads and retargeting and email list, we show it to people in a comprehensive way. And so part of what we're measuring are like just really basic things, like, are people watching your videos? Are they clicking through and going to your website? Are they picking up the phone and calling? And so most of the conversation is about those things, and it's less about like, look how cool Frankie Fihn is and it is to hang out with me and those kind of things. Because in the beginning, when you're an expert, they want to talk to you and ask you questions and things like that. And that's cool. But that works really well when, like I said, when you got 5 or 10 clients. Just put a 0 on those things and like it gets exponentially harder, because even just one 10-minute message, multiply that times 100 clients, and that's a whole fucking week's worth of work just answering emails.
Right.
And so the more you can keep the focus on what you're producing, and we kind of have like a system in our mastermind for producing it. And it's about kind of like in a simple form, like, every business will tell you what they need are more new customers and new leads, but that's an assumption they have about growing. And almost always they have resources in their business that exist, which is most often their customer list. I see this a lot, like using an analogy of restaurants. I went to a lot of restaurants for years because my girlfriend was like a Groupon junkie and like loved just trying new restaurants on Groupon. And I found restaurants, to get you in the door, to seduce you to come in the door and come and try it, they'll like heavily discount a meal, where they'll take a $50 meal, sell it to you for like $14 or $20. And then Groupon takes half of the money on top of that. So they only keep like 7 or 10 of that.
Yeah.
And they'll discount it. And after you come in the door, they just hope you come and try the restaurant again. And almost always the easiest thing in the business is not to bring more new people, but to say to the people who just tried it, hey, we have a coupon to come for tomorrow. Like, we got a free dessert. We got an appetizer. Hey, you tried the chicken, come try the steak. Try the steak, come try the chicken, right? Like there's ways to do that. Hey, we have a 10% off VIP offer if you join our SMS list where we text out offers. You can get 10% off your meal right now. That's already heavily discounted. And so almost always what businesses think they need and what they actually need are different. And so a big part of how we take the focus off that is focusing on the faster deliverables. So a business will say, what we need are more new clients. So I had a client, I just did this for a friend, but I wrote about it in my book. A friend of mine in March of 2020 bought a roofing company and closed on it March of 2020. And then literally like in the week he bought it, the whole freaking world shut down. And all of a sudden he inherited this roofing company and he didn't have the flow of business. And so he said, I need to get some money and some cash into this business now because I've got like a crew that I'm paying $50,000. And the numbers were fine 2 weeks ago when I bought it, but today we just don't have the business. And so he said, can you get me up there in Google? Can you run Facebook ads? Can we do all those things? And again, like this is where most businesses, their mind goes. The assumption is I need more new people. So I simply asked the question, do you have lists of customers? And he sent me back a picture and there was a room full of boxes with every customer who had ever bought over the last 17 years and invoices and things like that. And I said, like, do you have their contact info? Like, do you have their names, their email, their addresses, those kind of things? He said, yeah. And he said, it would take us like, a couple of days to put it all into a spreadsheet, but we could do it. And I said, do that. And he emailed me back in a couple of days. And in the spreadsheet, I wrote back, or we got the spreadsheet, we uploaded it into an email software, and I wrote a little email, and the email just said something like this. Hey, this is your roofer. I just want to let you know, I really appreciate you. I know we haven't talked in a while, but if you have any like leaks or anything that needs some help, love to help you. Give me a call. It's the whole email. Made about $100,000 from that email.
Amazing.
And it isn't because the email is so particularly fucking brilliant. It's because we use the resources they already have rather than trying to acquire new resources and new relationships and new things like that. And so that's another part of getting them away from having it all be on you is understanding they have underutilized resources. If you help them to use that, almost always what I find is you'll be the only agency that's trying to help them with the resources they already have. And it's a little bit counterintuitive because why do we focus so much on new? Because they tell us they need new, and they're always wrong. They're not wrong in that they're like, you know,
They need
like
more business. They're wrong that it's new business that they need.
exactly. There's an assumption in there, an unhelpful assumption. And if you can ignore that unhelpful assumption, you can often help them faster, quicker, and easier. And therefore, you don't have to make the agency about you, right? Like, because, okay, so he makes $100,000. I think he picked up like 3 or 4 big roofing jobs in Southern California from that email. Is that because like I'm so awesome and Frankie Fihn, or is that just like he's just happy to have 3 or 4 roofing jobs? Usually it's just he's happy to have 3 or 4 big roofing jobs. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's still a challenge to completely remove yourself from your agency, especially if you're the person on the ads and the things or the pieces of content or whatever they're seeing. But at the same time, if you keep the focus about those 4 things and expectations and you focus on better ways of doing that, you can make the conversations about that and they're happy to help them. The other thing too is I'm like really fucking brutally honest with my clients. And I think a lot of people try and not be that. So they're like, so when I meet a client, I'm like, hey, listen, like this is how I work. I live in Mexico. I mostly hang out on the beach with my kids. I get your stuff done in between. I'll send you an update every second Friday. But I don't do meetings and phone calls because I find them to be a waste of time. Like if that doesn't work for you, like I totally understand, but that's just not how I work. Like, what do you think? Like what I want to do for you is produce this result and, you know, have our conversations be about that. And I'll text you and I'll give you updates even before you ask, how do you feel about that? And usually they're like, yeah, I'm fine with it. You would be amazed at how much, if you just tell clients, here's how I work and lay out expectations and boundaries, that they'll do it. I used to think like anytime a client said, call me, I would have to call them. And then I started just shifting it to like, I don't call people. They're like, you know, and I would set that expectation right in the front. Like, it's totally okay if you need to have phone calls, but I'm just going to let you know right now, I won't be the agency for you. And you'd be surprised. They go, well, I just want to be informed. Oh, well, I'm going to inform you and I will communicate with you and let you know what's going on. But no, I don't do meetings because it's just, you know, that's not how I work it. I don't use a calendar. It gets it too much in the way of my day. Are you cool with that? And you'd be amazed at how many clients that you think would not be okay with it. If you just tell them like, this is how I roll, they'll say, sure. So a lot of it is taking whatever boundaries you have and putting them as expectations. Just to give one more example on that, because I know I'm a little long-winded, but we just had a client in our mastermind who hit his first $100,000 month. He's kicking ass, but what he found is now he's in the managerial stage. He's got about 25, 30 virtual assistants, and all day long, somebody's saying, hey, you got a minute for this? You got a minute for that? You got a minute? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? And so he's feeling like whole day long, like checking his text, responding to everything. I go, listen, you have a boundary that says, I don't want to be answering my shit all day long. So just tell them my office hours are Monday from 12 to 4 and Tuesday from 1 to 6. And these are when I answer those kind of questions. And outside of those times, if it's not important, I'm going to ask you to wait until office hours to reach me. And what he found is like 95% of those requests in a week either disappeared completely or got moved to those windows of times when it was convenient for him. And the only reason it wasn't doing that is because he hadn't expressed, these are my boundaries. This is how I work, right? And most people are okay with it. If you just tell them like office hours are Monday and Tuesday from here to here, they'll save the request from there to there, or they'll figure out how to solve the problem and not even ask you. And he found that was like a game changer for him. Instead of having like 80 hours a week of just barrage of incoming texts and emails, now he's got, 2, 3, or 4 hour periods where he's open to those. And that's it, right? And also, in his case, he just brought in a manager. And I told him, like, what do you think is going to be easier to bring in a manager? Hey, manager, I get 80 hours a week of just a random barrage of incoming texts, try and manage all these things. Or saying, hey, we do office hours from here to here, and these are the kind of requests we answer in that time. Like, what do you think is going to be easier for another human to manage when you want to replace yourself? And so it's a long-winded answer, I know, but like there's a lot of things you can do to make the structure less dependent on you.
Right, right. Now you've mentioned several times mastermind, and for me as an agency owner and someone in the online marketing world, I've heard many times about masterminds. I've never participated in one. Like what? I would love, first of all, for you to say a few words about your mastermind, but also what are the benefits of joining a mastermind, and who is it really for? Like not just you in particular, but generally speaking, and obviously your mastermind. Who is it for?
I'll tell you why masterminds are so badass. Obviously, you can tell I'm a fan. I think if you're going to be in business long term, it's like for real. It's an advantageous shortcut to be in the right. About 5 years ago, I got invited to a lawyer mastermind, and it was one of my OG mentors who I've mentioned earlier. His name is Ken, and Ken said, a couple of the guys there have a bunch of SEO questions. I know you did it for 7 or 8 years, and you don't do it now. So I know you don't have a service to sell them. So you have no kind of skin in the game. So you can just give them like real, no bullshit answers. Is this company any good? Is that one any good? They just want to know like that. How are my rankings? What would it take to beat this guy? What do you think of this company? Blah, blah, blah. Like just those kind of things. So I said, sure. And I came in and I sat in this mastermind. I was speaking at the event. So it wasn't even like I had to make a special trip for it or anything. It was just like, hey, come downstairs, for after hours and sit with us for 2 hours. And I remember I asked him just out of curiosity, how much is the mastermind? And he said, it's $12,000 for 3 meetings a year. And I remember thinking, who in their fucking right mind would pay $12,000 for 3 fucking meetings, right? And I remember, I still to this day remember just having my head blew up because I went in there and I didn't know this, but he didn't tell me, but this was a mastermind of some of the top lawyers in the fucking world. Like state leaders, some of the biggest guys, like there were, I think 12 to 14 guys in the room, and every one of them was like a serious player in their market, like top 1%, either the biggest or second biggest and moving up. And I remember the first hour of it, one of the guys got up there and he showed what he was doing with his TV ads, and they asked him some questions. In a matter of an hour, I went from knowing zero about lawyer TV commercials to knowing how much they cost, who can produce them for you, the name of the companies, how to buy the media, who to get it cheap, who to talk to at the network, who is the one who produced it, who gets the branding, phone numbers, which kind of commercials work, which ones don't, how long do you need to run them, how to measure them, and a list of everybody's commercials and how many variations. And like my mind was blew up. I went from knowing nothing to an hour later. I've never tried, but I'm convinced I could write like really successful lawyer TV commercials. I actually now know there's a guy, we call him the godfather of lawyer TV. His name's Harlan Schillinger. He's a friend of mine. I got introduced to Harlan. I would have no idea who Harlan was at this mastermind. And I realized really quickly that the top people, one of their big advantages is they're sharing what works with other top people. Like there was a network going on behind the scenes of the people who were the top people who were sharing all the little insider secrets. They were sharing like how they got a little more out of extra case. They were sharing their funnels and their marketing and their ads and all those things to people who had non-compete relationships with them. And so what I realized is like the real key more than anything else is it was a tremendous shortcut. It's not like I couldn't have figured out TV commercials. I could have researched who are the people and how to buy it and all of those things I could have found out individually, but I got up to speed on it in like a fucking hour. And so a big part of like what we're doing in our mastermind is my mastermind's called the Beyond Agency Profits Wolf Pack. We call ourselves the Wolf Pack. I don't have my wolf shirt on today, but usually I'm rocking a wolf shirt. And it's for agency owners typically who are around anywhere from like 5 to 15 clients who want to scale the thing and eliminate all the meetings and phone calls and do it in a way where, you're doing less than 10 hours a week and keeping clients a long time. And also like a big part of it, like I've mentioned, is reinvesting profits into assets. So you're making money when you're not working. So even if you like totally stop doing agency things, you're still getting, more wealth regardless. And we've seen some pretty amazing things like in our mastermind. I've seen I mentioned people have their first $100,000 a month. People have their passive income goals. Like, to me, that's a huge number. When your passive income all of a sudden meets your basic needs of life and your family's needs, like, you literally never have to work again from that point. Everything is optional to you at that point, because you at least have like job living without lifting a finger. We've also had people, like one guy just told me that he's posting his Stripe account, and his average retention is so high that his average client pays him $400,000. We've helped people to start charging 10 grand a month for their services, and a whole bunch of just little wins like that. And those are things that, like I always say, I don't take people who wouldn't be successful and make them successful. I take what would take you 10 years to figure out, and we do it in 10 weeks. And so it's the benefit of like just getting there a lot fucking faster based on, people who've already been in front of you and taken the arrows. And when I realized the power of masterminds, when I first went into that one, I joined a mastermind about, my own, not like my own, but I joined somebody else's, and paid for it. And I think it was like $10,000 or $15,000. And I think I had an exponential leap forward. I went from I think I was charging like $1,000 or $2,000 a month and didn't feel like I could charge more, to like suddenly 5 or 10 grand was okay. And had like my first $50,000 a month, really shortly thereafter it. It was an interesting thing to suddenly have breathing room in the bank and better systems and higher end clients and funnels. And it was just like learning from people who've already done it, their sales structures, their mindsets and things like that. And so I think there's just the power of a support structure that's bigger than you and can see things that you can't necessarily see. And so I don't think masterminds are necessarily for everybody, but if you're interested in ours, it'll be, like I say, usually the people we help the best are 5 to 15, 20 clients and are having some traction, but are reaching that stuck point and want to go to a point where you just have, clients who pay a lot, are happy for a long time, and you have the systems and the process and the team, and then you're reinvesting profits and you're building real wealth that gets you ahead. And that's a thing nobody really taught me is like, okay, so even I've had agency friends who have like $200,000 a month agencies, and then eventually after like 2-3 years reach a point of burnout and stop running their agency, and they're fucking broke like a month or two later. And it's like blows your mind, because they're living a $200,000 a month lifestyle, and they had a $200,000 a month team and those kind of things. And then, once they have their foot off the gas, they have nothing to show for it. And like, for those of us who have kids, like there's something to be said for like really permanently getting ahead in a way where you have kind of what I call like fuck you money. Like, the guy who has the passive income to cover his life, he never has to get up out of bed and work again. So, and, we've also just helped a lot of people. I'd say another big thing we do is help people to craft offers around what they do that go from making it difficult to sell to easy, where like suddenly goes from this kind of like swimming against the current. Like when I first sold SEO, it was always like swimming against the current. I'd have to use proposals and chase people, to suddenly this downhill thing where people just say, yes, I want that. And then you don't have to fight so hard to sell it. That's another kind of benefit. That's a long-winded rant, but I'm a big fan of masterminds in general. I don't think our mastermind is for everybody, but I think if you're looking to be in business for a long time, they're worth exploring.
Amazing. And you also have a book that we briefly touched about earlier, Beyond the Agency Box, right? That's the name?
That's the one. It's on Amazon.
Yeah. So what's inside of that?
Well, this is basically, I think the things that people get the most out of is probably the second chapter has a thing about the 5 stages of agency growth, which is growing from a freelancer to hiring people to managing it to being like a CEO of a real thing. And then if you want to, building multiple agencies. And I've never really had the desire to go past that point, but understanding what the exact challenges are and how to get through them and identifying those, because a lot of times what keeps people stuck is just working on the wrong things, like not actually knowing what's keeping them stuck and identifying the real causes of where they're stuck. And I think just for that alone, it's worth it. There's also some gems in there about like kind of setting client expectations and setting up those relationships to win, and how to keep clients happy, which by the way has very fucking little to do with your deliverable. Took me a lot of years to realize it's like, even if you do great SEO or if you get 10 times return on Facebook ads. You still may get fired, but if you do the things I talk about in the book, you'll have happy clients and they'll love you for it. So there's just lots of little things like that. It's basically 14 years of agency struggle and realizations compressed down to, I don't know, 150, 200 pages or whatever it is.
Amazing. Frankie, where can people find you?
Well, as mentioned, if you're interested in checking out the book, that'd be a good starting place. It's on Amazon. It's called Beyond the Agency Box. You can just also search my name, Frankie Fihn. And we also have a little Facebook community called Beyond Agency Profits, Lifestyle Agency Design. It's for those of you guys who want to design a business that supports your life rather than own it, so that you can, do the beach or whatever that is for you. Like a lot of our people are naturey mountain climbers, like to just kind of do their own thing and have some peace in their lives and have a cool business that supports all that, so they can have real freedom. If that's you, you probably like our community. There's lots of cool shit I share inside of there. So check it out.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, man. It's been a real jam, and I personally took a lot from it. And yeah, we'll definitely keep this thing rolling, and maybe we'll do a round 2 in a couple of months or so.
You got it.
Awesome, man. Thank you.